Despite these high vaccination rates, we're not out of the woods yet with this pandemic. And that's why we moved to a modified step 2 of the roadmap to reopen on January the 5th. We know these temporary measures in place, many small businesses across Ontario will continue to stay afloat. That's why our government launched the Ontario COVID-19 Small Business Relief Grant. This new program will provide a one-time grant of $10,000 for eligible small businesses with less than 100 employees to help them during these challenging and unprecedented times. And this grant, it will help companies who are required to close indoor operations because of the current public health measures. Eligible businesses that qualified for previous small business assistance and had closed due to the provincial measures will be pre-screened to verify eligibility by the end of January. They will not need to reapply to the new program. New applicants will have the opportunity to apply for the Ontario COVID-19 Small Business Relief Grant in February. These new applicants will need to provide supporting documentation to demonstrate a minimum of 20% revenue decline from December 2021 to January 2022. So once we've received all the necessary information, those successful applicants will receive their grant soon after. So some of the eligible businesses, they include restaurants and bars, and that includes Legions that provide food and beverage services, facilities for indoor sports and recreational fitness activities, so fitness centers and gyms, racing venues, casinos, bingo halls, and gaming establishments, meeting or event spaces, tour and guide services, performing arts centers, cinemas, museums, galleries, aquariums, zoos, science centers, landmarks, historic sites, botanical gardens and similar attractions, conference centers and convention centers, driving instruction for individuals, and before and after school programs. Businesses that receive the funding will be able to use them to support in whatever way makes the most sense for them. So for example, some companies may use the grant to support paying employee wages or to pay suppliers. Others may use it to pay rent or maintain inventory. The government understands that many small businesses are in dire straits because of the ongoing pandemic. And we want the business community to know we're listening, and we want to work with you to get through this difficult time.
Hello, Minister. Portuguese restaurants are the most common companies in the Portuguese Canadian community, but it's not just small ones that are affected by the new restrictions. Is there any support for restaurants that do not qualify as a small business?
Thank you, Nuno. And so this particular program is the Small Business Relief Grant. So you have to have under 100 employees to qualify. And you know, when you think of a restaurant that probably has more than 100 employees, $10,000 is for that size of a business. It is not a huge loss of revenue. But for a small business, for a small restaurant establishment, that's a big deal. It helps them, you know, they may have ordered food that they don't have the money to pay for, so this can allow them to pay those suppliers to keep, you know, and just to help them with their energy costs. So just to go back to those restaurants that have been closed under this local lockdown, regardless of if they're a larger business, they do qualify for the grants, the other grants, such as the worker benefit. So I'll talk about, for example, the rent subsidy. They will still qualify for the rent subsidy. They will qualify for the wage subsidy as well. So they do qualify for many other grants through the federal program, and they can still apply for some of the local programs like the property taxes and energy costs as well. So that's not just for small businesses, that's for all businesses. So they can qualify for many of the programs, which will be significant for those, because if you think of a restaurant perhaps or that has more than 100 employees, that's quite a large place. So they will qualify. And just on some of the larger businesses or smaller businesses, it includes full-time, part-time, seasonal employees as well. So, you know, we want to help businesses get as much as they possibly can to support them through this hard time.
My second question, many small companies in the Portuguese Canadian community provide the services in the area of cleaning and small renovations in the area of civil construction, some registered by immigrants who are still undocumented. Will these companies be able to receive this support? Thank you so much.
Yeah, so renovations, construction has not been closed down at all. It doesn't even have a restriction right now, so they can continue. So their businesses are continuing as normal. And if anyone knows anyone who's trying to do any kind of construction, whether it's at home or in a business or elsewhere, it's very hard to find those people. We are in dire need of people in those industries. So there's an abundance of jobs available for those people. And if their particular company, perhaps because of the closed down, lockdown, we're working in some of these areas. There are many other areas we can help support them because we desperately do need people in that and those areas to work right now, even during the lockdown. So one thing, I mean, I have the Portuguese Community Cultural Center, which is in my riding here, just around the corner, and their banquet hall, for the most part, most of what they do is their banquet hall, and they do cover. They are qualified, so they will receive this small business grant. It's been very difficult for all of our banquet halls throughout this time, so we are supporting them as well.
What do you mean by newly business? It is from other industries other than you just mentioned, and what do you mean by newly when you consider this business is new? And the other thing, we as a media, we are not included, although we are the most industry which is still working to provide the audience with the news, and actually the advertisers and the marketing budgets have been hardly restricted by that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Rami. Thanks for joining us again today. So the newly established businesses that qualify for the grant are those businesses that perhaps weren't around or couldn't qualify for the previous grants. However, they do need to meet one of those eligibility criteria. So there must be one of the businesses that we have closed for indoor facilities and activities based on that list I gave earlier to qualify for this particular grant. However, there are many other areas that they can qualify. There are many business supports coming from the federal government, and I can go into some of those a little later, such as they can possibly qualify under the Tourism and Hospitality Recovery Program. They have the Hardest Hit Business Recovery Program and the Local Lockdown Program. So a local lockdown program was where we are in this grant, and also the Canada Worker Lockdown Program. So there are other areas that they can still qualify through that if they're not one of the business that we have mandated to close down. So also here, so for the businesses that qualify for this particular grant, there are also many other measures that we can give them relief here in Ontario as well. So outside of this grant, we also have set up what we call the Business Costs Rebate Program. And that program is, so if you've been closed 50% or more, we will be giving you back 50% of your reported property tax and energy costs from the province, and that will be direct. So this includes your education and municipal property taxes. And on the energy side, that's your electricity, your natural gas, propane, heating oil. So we can give you that up to from 50%. And if you close down 100% from the government, we will give you 100% of that rebate. Something that was also announced yesterday from the Minister of Energy is for residences and businesses, we're going to be initiating the off-peak time of use rate. So right now that's going to come down to 8.2 cents per kilowatt hour. So nothing needs to be done. No one has to apply for this. It's going to be done automatically, and it's going to be implemented on January the 18th. So that is something that we can all, as a community, look forward to help us all. And, you know, fully understanding that there's, I do know and I understand that the sector of media has struggled since the pandemic began. When businesses are closed down and the advertising revenue has dried up, it's been very difficult. That's why I know many of my colleagues and our government has reached out to many of you and your stations, and been trying to support as best we can. And I know there's there's more that we're hoping to do in the coming months as well. So this particular grant, because media itself has not been closed down, so this is why you're not eligible for this particular $10,000 grant, but we'll try and help out in other ways as well.
Thank you. Actually, for the media, we are not closing. We are not closing because it is our duty and our job to inform people by this information. But the revenue itself just decreased. And sometimes it is minimized. So this is just to let the government know that we are not closing because the business is good. No, we are just doing our job for delivering the news for the people. Thank you very much.
No, and thank you, Ramin, and I do appreciate it. And I do want to say this to each and every one of you. We do, not just as a government, but as a community, we do rely on you to get a message out to the overall community. And we know you've really done your part where it comes to, trying to encourage people to get vaccinated, to wear their masks, to socially distance, to stay at home if they don't need to go out. So we do appreciate the messaging that you're getting out there, whether it's from the government or from your own community. So thank you very much, Ramin, to each and every one of you for doing that.